Alrighty, welcome everybody to the Winter Garden Plant Lovers Tour. So I want to start off a little bit talking about what is a winter garden, and really it's just a garden in winter. So I think any garden can and should be a winter garden. Any garden can and should have some winter interest. So what kind of things change in the winter that make for interest? Well, a lot of plants will drop their leaves and let more light down into the understory. The evergreen plants will retain their leaves, and some might take on a different color or hue. Some plants which drop their leaves will take on colored bark, which we'll look at as well. And then finally, there are some plants that are solely winter active. So some of your bulbs like narcissus, snowdrops, galanthus will come up in the winter and enjoy having that period of extra light before the trees above them leaf back out, at which point they will go dormant again. So just if you're starting a winter garden or you want to incorporate some winter interest in your garden, I think in the South, a good place to start is some camellias, some evergreen plants for structure, some narcissus, obviously, and then a nice feature like a colored acer. So we'll look at one on this tour, and there's two that I'm thinking of that take on a really nice color, like Sangu Kaku or Bihu. And I think just that's a good start for a winter garden. So without further ado, we'll get started. I will say with a warning that some of the spots are icy, so take your time. We are in no rush. Our primary goal is your safety because, yeah, obviously. So yeah, we'll get started. So when I started prepping for this tour, I was like, it's been really cold. I don't know if I'll have much to choose from. But I mean, just coming into the Arboretum, this pedestrian entrance has a whole nice selection of evergreen plants for you to choose from. I didn't want to stick around here too long, but you can look and see different varieties of ruscus and some acuba and some hellebores, some asarum, really beautiful foliage plants. But one that I've always loved and I wanted to talk about a little bit here is Cyclamen hederifolium. So these will flower in August, and they come up as, there's a word for it, but naked flowers. So it's just the flower, there's no foliage, and it's really nice. It always looks like they magically appear out of nowhere. There is a tuber below the ground. That's where they store their energy. And then so in fall, they'll shoot that flower up. It's a nice light pink, and it has such a cool, if you've seen Cyclamen, it's just such a cool flower. But then after that, throughout the winter, they will sprout these leaves that take on this beautiful waxy silver look and shape. And so it's not a particularly fast grower. It takes a few years to establish, and you want to get a couple so that they start seeding around a little bit, because it really looks nice when it's splashed around the garden.
And don't tell the squirrels or rabbits.
Yeah, tell them to stay away. Tell them to back off. So you can find this at Ashwood Nurseries, and it is from Eastern Europe and Western Asia originally. Any questions about Cyclamen hederifolium? What color are the flowers? I think these are a light pink, a pale pink. Yeah, with white hue. Yeah. So would I call this a shade loving or part shade loving? So these are a woodland species. So same thing as with the daffodils. They can take full sun, full shade most of the year because by summertime these leaves are gone. What's important is to have, if there's going to be trees above them, that there's partially deciduous trees because they need at least that part sun in the winter. Okay, we will move on this way. All right, this is Salix flame, so a willow tree. And what we can see here is two things. First, this colored bark is the main point of interest. So once the leaves drop and the light hits it, something happens. I really couldn't figure out exactly why it takes on this color. Like, what benefit does it have? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's a protection, like a sunscreen of sorts. But really beautiful orange sticks that really pop, especially when it snowed yesterday. I wish some of the snow had stayed right here so it would pop even more. And against this blue Abies, I believe this is really nice. And the other thing we can see is the pruning technique that you have to use on a plant like this is called a rejuvenation cut, which is when you cut it back low to the ground. And so we will consistently cut these back pretty near the base every 3 years or so, because the part of this that's actually showy is the twigs. And when we say twigs, that's basically sticks that are 3 years or younger. So if we let this get any older, we start to see that bark here is just, it's not as vibrant. And so we don't want that. We want to show the pretty stuff. So we will soon be cutting this back to the base, and it does form kind of a gnarly stump. So that first pruning cut is important. So after it's established, that first cut you make is where you're going to cut back to each year. So maybe leave even a slightly lower stump. It's not bad here because it's on a hill, so you can't really see it too much, but it is an interesting feature, the stump is. But yeah, that is Salix flame, and it is also easy to propagate, which Sophia can talk a little bit about.
So this is one that I like to do for our winter workshop, a propagation workshop, because we can cut it, and it is a Salix, and Salix are notoriously easy to propagate. You can almost stick them in the ground. I feel like Salix is one of those that you can just basically stick in the ground and it'll work.
Have you heard that kind of like wives' tale of there's one species that you stick a cutting of it in water and it helps something else root? Like it's that full of rooting hormone? That
No,
if you
I haven't heard that.
No?
That with pussy willows.
Pussy willow, yeah.
Yeah.
That take a bunch of cuttings, cut them off, stick them in water to root them, but then that water, when I pour it on other things, it helps them root.
Yeah.
I've not
It's
heard
just
that.
it's that full of rooting hormone.
I'll read on that. I've not heard that.
Any questions?
So this
What season is the best season to propagate?
Yeah, so for this particular one, it's easy to do in the winter. You can probably, Salix are so silly easy that you could probably do it other times, but it's an easy one to do in the winter, so we just do it in the winter. Tim will usually cut it back as other things are kind of flushing out, so it's definitely doable to do it in the summer, but
Yeah, and this vigor too. Not all trees can sustain this harsh level of cutting. A lot of trees won't just be resprouting from the base, or if they do, they're weak suckers. But this just
that's
just
another
keeps pushing.
thing about Salix is they're extremely vigorous. So that was my other point is putting this somewhere where it can take the size of it, because it's like Evan said. I think this will be the year we cut it back. So
every 3
this
years
is
it's this.
2 or 3 years of growth, and it's already like you can already see the bark kind of changing on some of these bigger branches. So it's due for a haircut.
Cool, and we shall move along.
It's
Is
beautiful.
this talked about often?
It was done literally last month and many times before.
Yeah. Okay. then I won't spend too long on this because this is talked about a lot, but for good reason. This is Acer palmatum bihu, and this is a colored bark variety. Here at the very base, you can see it's starting to really woody up and lose that yellow color. But I mean, you don't have to say anything. I don't have to even be here. This plant speaks for itself. It's a great feature for a winter garden, so I had to talk about it. And yes, eventually it will continue to woody up until it's just the tips that are really colorful. We have a red variety of Acer palmatum is Sengokaku, which is very popular, and I really like the red against the white and the dark green of the winter garden. And that 30-year-old one is like everything from here past is still that kind of red, but this is all brown woody tissue. So eventually this won't be like this, but this is a 2015 accession, so it's about 10 years old now, and it's still a great feature, great upright form. It appreciates some dryness and a little bit of protection because it actually can burn in full sun. But other than that, great plants. Definitely think about adding this to your garden. Any questions on Acer palmatum bihu? Right, so since it's a yellow plant, Marilyn observed that it's best to plant it against either a structure or a dark green evergreen background so that the yellow really pops out. Okay, we'll keep moving.
Next we have agave avadifolium, or avadifolia. Takes a little bit more light than some of the other things we're going to talk about because it's an agave. Something I just noticed that I really love about agaves is you can see the lines where the spines are like imprinted on the leaf and it stays there. Like you can see them on even the older leaves. That wasn't on my notes, but that's one of my favorite things about this plant. So yeah, this is a full sun plant, hardy to zone B, 7B, 7A. I think Tony has it listed as 7A, so take that how you will. I think this is actually one of the plants I did on my plant lovers tour as an intern. So we go way back, but it's just great. I believe Tim planted these in 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. These were seedlings actually. The nice thing about these is unlike other agaves, they don't pup, so they don't tend to spread. So they're like a very contained statement piece. The common name for them is whale's tongue agave, which is another thing that I love about them because they're just like, that's what they look like. Sometimes common names don't make sense and you gotta be like, what does that even mean? Why? They're a little bit more moisture tolerant than some other agaves, so that kind of helps us in the southeast here where we get that, moist winter. But they are super vigorous, like they love it here. And I love the snow in them, which is a rare thing you don't always get to see here. They're a century plant, so they're gonna bloom. We've had a number of them die in the garden because once they bloom, they die. So this is, like I said, this is a seedling that we got from Plant Delights. They're from northeastern Mexico, northern Mexico. Questions?
I noticed they're planted kind of on mounds. Do they have to be planted on mounds, or is that just like an aesthetic thing?
I think that's an aesthetics thing, but I would imagine that they would prefer that because they can take some moisture, but they probably don't want to be sitting in our red clay. I think the other ones I can think of in the garden are the monocot and then the ones in front of the lath house, and they're kind of mounded too. So if you asked Tim, he'd probably tell you that yes, that is somewhat intentional.
Yeah, and did you mention permatil?
No.
So some agaves, like Sophia mentioned, this one is more tolerant of moisture, but some appreciate an amended soil that drains better because what kills it isn't the cold, it's the moisture. It's when the roots themselves freeze, so there has to be moisture there. So the addition of some sand or permatil into that soil and a little bit of a berming situation will afford you more success with most agaves.
They usually throw up flowers in the summer. Yeah, and
Every how many years?
approximately 1 century. That's well, but that's not true. People used to call them century plants because they never saw them flowers, so they just thought they lived for 100 years. But no, this one, I didn't look at the ages of the previous ones, but the one in the monocot garden was way bigger. I don't know how long that lived, but like I said, we've had a couple. In my memory, at least one has bloomed, so 10, 15 years. Right, then being spoiled here with our nutrients and our water. Pampered, really.
I'll add one more thing, which is once it flowers, that plant itself is done, but a lot of them will throw out pups.
Yeah, I mentioned the pups, but the pups are definitely, these don't pup, generally.
These don't pup, but it's you might not take out a dying agave because the pups will actually be growing through some of that dead material is what I've noticed with some of ours. Once they're like, dead, they're gone. But in those first few months after it flowers, don't be in any rush to remove it.
I mean, who would want this? Well, let's just dive in. I always pick the spiny plants. Where are we headed?
This way. Okay, so before we dive into the winter garden, I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So this is a big space that connects, obviously we just came off the end of the perennial border by the necessary, to the berms, to the white garden, so it's a big space. And I think we started coming in here to clean up about a year ago. And so the goal here and the future direction is to let more light in, because you'll see a lot of evergreen plants. We have a lot of hollies and evergreen oaks, which are great plants, but when they're all planted together, they just keep throwing shade all winter. So nothing in this garden is really dropping leaves and allowing that light into the understory, which means we have a more limited selection of plants. But you can see in areas like this, even the strips where there's not trees down the middle of the path, things still grow in that part sun environment. And I just really like, we'll get to that later, that Elysium parviflorum is very welcoming. That bright yellow, it's like come this way. And so we will. So this is Hamamelis early bright, and it has not even flinched from the cold. I mean, these flowers were all frozen over, but the flowers will stay undamaged down to -5 degrees Fahrenheit, because this is a zone 6 plant. So this is native to central China. Hamamelis mollis is the species, and it's doing something really cool because of how far away the light was and how far back it was planted. And this is what it'll do a lot in a more native environment, is this stretching activity. So you see how it's like intertwined with some of the branches on this camellia. It's actually using the camellia to support the weight, and as it continues stretching for the light. So this is a pretty common feature of this plant, and I think it's really cool. So it's not as compact as, say, Hamamelis X intermedia might be, but if you're going for a more natural woodland feel, I really love this. It's been bright yellow for almost a month now, and it should be like this through February. So it's a really impressive plant. And then it's low maintenance too. Hamamelis is, again, it's interesting structurally because it likes to have a permanent developing framework. So you shouldn't need to make very many pruning cuts on it. You can remove some of the suckers, but maybe leave a couple if your plant is getting damaged once it's reaching too far out here. So leaving a couple suckers might be good, but overall it slowly grows and develops and does its thing. And this was 4 feet tall in 96, so 1996. So 30 years after that, now it's this big. So it's a slow grower, it's a patient plant, so you'd have to be patient with it. Any questions about this before I move on to this cornice?
Is it grafted?
Is it grafted? I don't know. Okay. I do not know.
That would be a thought on suckering, if the suckering...
Is the suckering the same plant?
Right.
Or is it the straight species? Right. So if it is grafted, you would remove the suckers because they're the straight species and you want the cultivar traits. And you had a question? No, so do you actively prune it or just let it go? As a whole, just remove dead material. That's it. There's a slight fragrance. Is it best when it first comes out? Okay, so Blake has mentioned that when this plant first blooms, that it's a really nice fragrance. Is it a sweet smell?
Yeah.
It's a sweet smell. Cool, thank you. Okay, and this above me is Cornus officinalis kentucky, which is also stretching for the light. And with all these plants, we've done some removals in here and a lot of dead branch material. So we're hoping that they continue to fill out, and what is now stretching for the light can fill out and look good and not put too much pressure, hopefully, on the trunk itself, because it's taken on a very spindly look, and hopefully it will fill out without putting too much weight on the trunk. That's the hope. But onto Cornus officinalis kentucky. These cute yellow blooms have just recently, 2 weeks ago, started, and they will go through March. So nice fluffy blooms. This plant was actually selected in Japan for the cut flower industry. So they have long lasting and nice fluffy flowers. A little bigger compared to the average Cornus officinalis, I would imagine, but nothing crazy. It's a nice touch. And the other interesting part of this plant is that peely bark. So lots of attractive features about this plant. And it's hardy from zone 5 to 9. And then after it flowers, it'll follow up with bright red fruit. So a very cute tree all around. And then one other plant that I wanted to mention that also has yellow flowers soon that I couldn't include on the tour, but is worth mentioning for the winter garden, is Edgeworthia chrysantha. Any questions about Cornus officinalis kentucky? No? Okay. We'll move very far, which is not at all, and briefly talk about Cornus sanguinea, midwinter fire. So despite the small trunk on this is actually older than the salix we looked at in front. This is a 30-year-old tree. And like I said before, this was completely shaded out. So by removing the dead pine that was hanging above it, we're hoping this is returned to its former glory, because when it was included on a tour in 2010, it was called the best cornice in the the JCRA, and it just doesn't have that same attractiveness anymore, but it does apparently consistently get this color, and then it requires that same kind of every 3 years, cut it back to a certain point and let it reflush, because it's only the new growth that will take that on that color. And it also has a nice gold fall color as well of the leaves. It's resistant to leaf spots, and it's supposed to take on a nice bulky spread. So again, hopefully we can get it back to that point where it's more impressive again. And alternatives to this would be Cornus alba cultivars, the white dogwood, yeah, for that awesome colored twig. It's hardy all throughout NC and tolerant of moist all the way to poorly drained, tolerant of moist and poorly drained soils. Any questions on this cornice? All right, we're going to turn around.
We should talk about one of my favorite plants. I really love Alyssium. They're one of my favorite genus. I love the way the leaves smell. They smell like anise or star. So a common name is star anise. Alyssium parviflora, Florida sunshine. This actually was they were going to throw it away. They were growing it at a nursery down in Florida, hence the name Florida sunshine. Found this gold seedling, and they were going to throw it away because they were like, oh, we don't want a gold chlorotics Alyssium. But it's a native shrub from Georgia, Florida. It does need to stay moist. It doesn't like to be super dry. It can have a tendency to burn if it's in full sun, winter burn in the full sun. This, I believe, was planted in 2013. So again, because it's been shaded a little bit and protected, it has a tighter habit. Also, you can kind of see we prune on it too to get that flush, to keep it nice and consistent and to keep that effect of bringing you into this space. It's definitely a statement piece. It's largely pest free and maintenance free, which that's, I don't think, accurate. Yeah, it's a slow medium shrub. It can get up to 8 feet. But again, we keep it pruned back. Any questions? Yeah, it's definitely like shines. We're gonna move to the citrus. You can see we've got, we really wanted you guys to get your steps in today. So next we have Citrus trifoliata flying dragon. It's a hardy citrus. The notes in FileMaker says it's a hardy citrus relative, but I think it's just a hardy citrus. White flowers in spring. Tim did check me and say that these are definitely not fragrant. Some of the other hybrids in the garden are fragrant. This is definitely an architectural tree with, again, this is why I mentioned the thorny. I hate them, but the architecture and the thorns are just super cool. This is a dense multi-stem shrub. This was actually planted in, this doesn't have a year that, we don't know what year it was planted. So it's well over 30 years old. It has an XX succession. So we don't know where it came from or when we got it. We've got other ones in the garden we've got more information on. But this is definitely a old, good, deciduous, architectural tree. It does fruit. It has, we're not going to try to get it. There's a fruit up there. Similar, what I've read online said is similar to a lemon, but it's much tartar, like quite tart. Somewhere I read that people often make marmalade with them, which I don't think anyone's doing that often, but you know. Hardy to zone 6. It can take sun, it can take light shade. Just a nice, the nice dense shrub. I read 8 feet in 10 years, which is probably about right given how old this one is. Not a ton of pruning. I don't think we have to. The biggest thing is probably cleaning up the fruit. I know the other one we've got in the garden fruits a lot, and so you might want to clean up the fruit if they're on the ground. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, I would imagine you get some nice leather gloves if you need to prune this, because Okay, we're going real far again. We're going to go over to the Corylus. Here we have Corylus avellania contorta. I looked up the pronunciation of that and have promptly forgotten it. The common name for it is Henry Lauder's walking stick. Well, one of many common names. It's also, did I put any of the other ones down? I know it's false witch hazel was one of them, but I've always known it as Henry Lauder's walking stick. And I was like, who the heck is Henry Lauder? He was apparently a comedian, singer, and actor, and he was known for his kilt and walking stick from Scotland. The contorta was discovered growing as a sport in an English hedgerow in the mid-1800s. And that's kind of makes sense with where the common name came from. This particular one I think is really great just for its structure. So this had been kind of shaded out. So this is definitely one that I hope will fill back out this way. You can see a lot of new growth here. But this was planted in 96, I believe. Planted in 96, and then we moved it here, or someone moved it here in 2000. So this is a well-established tree. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm remembering that it does sometimes throw up suckers that are not contorted, and we just prune those out. It's got monoecious flowers, so separate male and female flowers on the same plant, which I always think that's interesting. I always get those different terms mixed up. I could not find who it pollinates it, which I was looking for. The genus name, which is Corylus, comes from the Greek root word of korylos, meaning helmet, and it's in regard to the husk on the nut. And I did ask Tim, he said we don't often get nuts on it, but I guess in other parts of the country or world, they do get nuts. Often this is grafted. Tim said this is grafted, but so I'm guessing what we are cutting out are actually root suckers. But it's an interesting one because it's a suckering shrub. Like that's how I found it described. So that's one of those conundrums of a grafted suckering shrub can kind of be tricky sometimes. You can find them not grafted, but I guess they're tricky to root. Any questions? Oh, is it tricky to grow? I didn't see any notes about it being particularly finicky. Yeah. It's hardy to zone 4, so it is really cold tolerant. Yeah, I think this, the notes I have say that it's a dense multi-stem shrub, grows to 8 to 10 feet, which given some sun and considering this is 30 years old, that's pretty good. This plant read its label. Not all plants read their labels like that Elysium. Anything else? Where are we going?
Going right here.
I think Evan is.
All the way.
Oh,
We're actually walking this time. All right, they're over there, so I'm gonna get started. So, this is Cominanthus praecox luteus, and the common name is winter sweet. This one is very sweet, but in comparison to the straight species over there, which is more vigorous, it smells way better. That one, the flowers remind me a little bit of wet dog, but this cultivar is truly sweet, and it'll throw the scent. I mean, I was pruning over there a month ago, and I mean, I could smell it, 50 feet away. Whenever you enter the winter garden, you can smell this, which makes me think in the Royal Horticultural Society, which gave this the Award of Garden Merit, they recommended planting it in mass. So I would love to smell that. I mean, you could probably drive by the Arboretum down that road and smell it if it was planted in mass. Similar to the hemamelis, it is a slow grower with kind of a funky structure. Again, if I was a better man, I would have come in here and pruned off these suckers so you wouldn't have to look at them. But all you have to do is, this is grafted, and you just prune off root suckers, and then in late spring, you take off anything that's diseased or dying. Other than that, it doesn't need anything. It's a slow grower. This was planted in the year 2000, so this is a 25-year-old plant. and it is reliably fragrant. It starts blooming in December, and it will bloom through February as long as we don't get a hard freeze, which unfortunately we did. So you can't see it in its full yellow glory and smell it, but if you believe,
Yeah,
can.
just think about it.
But yeah, there's plenty of other things that you can be adding that do smell good and do look good that are worth putting in to fill in for those years when you get a cold winter. And we are not going far. This is a nice addition to the winter garden. It is bright, it is big, it is bushy. This is Ilex cornuta O Spring. O Spring named after Otto Spring, who discovered it, and it was introduced in the 1950s by Tom Dodd. This has been around for about 40 years, and when I brought up that I was doing this to Tim, he said, he just sighed, and I was like, you don't like it? And he was like, I'm just tired of looking at it at this point. But, you know, I'm not. I'm new here. Every time I walk through here, and against all these dark-leafed evergreens, this variegated foliage is a nice, bright touch in the winter garden. It stays upright, and it is dioecious. One thing to note is that it doesn't like to be exposed in winter. So again, like that acer we talked about, Bihu, it likes to have a little bit of a backdrop. It likes to have a little bit of protection so it's not facing the full brunt of winter winds and winter sun, because it is not a perfect plant. Its variegated foliage, though beautiful, makes it susceptible to taking on that sun and cold damage a little more than the straight species. Any questions about Ilex cornuta O Spring? No? Then we will move on. So, this is Juniperus depiana, and it is a compact blue form of it. So this is a plant we are very excited to talk about. We're a little unsure because it been in the ground for 2 years, but we got this plant from the South Carolina Botanic Garden, and so far we have been very happy with it. So this tour has focused a lot on plants that take some of that part shade, but this is a lover of full sun all year round, just like that agave. So again, any garden can be a winter garden, even if you don't want to plant anything huge. We will see how tall this gets. The original form, just the straight species, is native to Arizona and Colorado, and it grows in sparse stands, so it's still getting that full sun. And it's actually an important tree for the breeding and overwintering of many bird species in the area, like the broad-tailed hummingbird and the acorn woodpecker. The alligator juniper is a great tree, and this form has taken on this blue, which is a blue that we can't often get here in the South. You know, up north you'll see blues left and right, and you just get jealous. But this could be a very reliable blue here, so we're very excited to talk about this Juniperus depiana compact blue form.
Is it bluer than it was last week?
I think so. I think the winter has made it more blue.
No, seriously, I noticed, because I've been looking at it, I really like this texture. I need to take cuttings of it, but I looked at it last week, and then when we came out here again today, I was like, hold on, that's way more blue. So I think the cold actually has brought that blue out a little bit.
Right, and that's a good point too, because when we say blue, if you actually look up really close at it, you would see that there is a film of white wax covering the green leaves, and it's that white and green in combination that make it appear blue to our eyes, and that wax is a protective layer, so this is preventing it from taking on so much cold damage and desiccation. So that wax is keeping in the heat and the moisture. It's great.
The more you know.
Yeah. Okay. We will tool along the icy path.
This is
Spray paint, exactly.
This is our
right.
honorable mention.
Yeah.
We were walking and I noticed this. It looks like a matte finish, and I wonder you mentioning the wax. I wonder if it's something similar.
Right. So this was a plant that you said you hadn't even really noticed in the nursery.
No, it didn't look like this in the nursery.
Right. Except as it started getting colder and it dropped its leaves and it was starting to get colder, it took on a little bit of this, and I was thinking, oh, I got to plant this. So this is, again, we're very excited, but we just planted this a month and a half ago.
Did we say the name?
It is Acer pubipalmatum, close relative of Acer palmatum, the Japanese maple. This instead instead is the Chinese maple. And like Sophia said, instead of that like in-your-face vibrant color that you might get from the Japanese maple cultivars, this has a softer type of color, and it's a really nice pink, again, especially against this white snow. And yeah, excited to see what it does.
Yeah. This is a 2015 accession, so it has probably taken some abuse because
Yeah.
I started in the nursery in 22.
Yeah,
So-
but I did some hack and slash intensive care on the root system before I planted it. So
I'll apologize to it for all the cursing I'm sure I did to it.
yeah. The leaves are green, and yes, they do have fall color.
Yeah.
So it takes on that classic NC State red fall color, and then it drops them, and you're left with this soft color. It doesn't hold the fall color for a super long time, but it does get the fall color.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to watch. It's definitely like we said, we just got it in the ground, so it's definitely something we're watching.
Yeah. Tuck it in. It's looking good so far, though.
No, it looks great.
Yeah. So this is Mahonia ex media underway. This was another recipient of the Royal Hort Society's Merit Award in 1993. And I just think this is a good opportunity to talk about evergreens that might not be in flower, but are still great structural elements. This plant just finished flowering a couple weeks ago. It flowers around the winter solstice. Is that correct? We passed the winter solstice, right? Yeah. It said it flowers on the winter solstice, but I never actually double checked when that is.
December 21st.
December 21st. Yeah,
December 20
it's
it's
right
always-
around when it flowered. I'm super impressed with the form on this one. It's an upright vase. I had to prune off some of the ones that were kind of like falling over onto this guy, but I really like the form of this Mahonia. The flower show was very impressive, that late December, early January flower show. And even still, it's a nice screen for the winter garden. It's a nice backdrop. It's a tall plant. So this one is 30 years old for reference. And then briefly, because it's a winter garden tour, I wanted to talk about camellias. So that's Camellia ragland. And this is Camellia
Golden Spangles.
Golden Spangles. Camellia Golden Spangles has some of that gold variegation that we talked about, something to light up the winter garden a little bit. And this is another opportunity to talk about, even though the frost has toasted the flowers that are currently on it, you can see some of these colorful buds, and those buds are still protecting that flower. So those will keep blooming and keep showing us that nice double pink. And it might even go all the way through early spring. So a reliable flower in both these camellias, and a great addition to the winter garden. If you don't want camellias to get this tall, we don't really touch these, but you can prune in spring after it's all done flowering in order to keep it at a height that you like. Takes parts of full shade and can get quite tall. Yeah, so some camellias say they can be planted in full shade, but might not flower in full shade. But other camellias don't flinch at full shade. They put on almost the same flower show. So it kind of depends, and that's where we recommend you come out here and look if you want maybe to get some ideas on plants and actually see them growing and what they're doing to know what they'll do in your yard.
Was this the sport off Mary Christian?
Oh yes, so the history of this, the species is a hybrid X. williamsi. It was between Japonica, which we see here, and Camellia saluensis. And the cultivar Mary Christian had this variegated sport on it, which we now know as Golden Spangles.
Some of the newer ones that I planted a lot of are the October Magic series.
Yeah, to stay lower.
They've got some really great shapes on them. I've gone back and seen them more. I planted them at my previous position and have gone back and seen them now that they're more established, and they tend to stay a little bit more foundation. I don't know how many cultivars there are of camellias, but there are. It's
Thousands.
It's probably similar to how many Japanese maple cultivars there are.
How many daffodil cultivars? It's a hobby breeding.
You can probably find one for any shape, size, or location that you need. We got one that I'm excited about called Slim and Trim. We got it in for the sale last year, and it's very petite.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of camellias to have fun with. And the last plant on our tour in true Arboretum fashion is a maple. This is Acer Fabrii, Faber's maple. It hails from southwest China and it bears evergreen leaves. As you can see, that took almost no cold damage. The plant will bloom in early spring. It has a green to red flower and it's considered an impressive bloom for a maple, so take that as you will. But this plant is in commemoration of Ernst Faber, a 19th century plant collector from Germany who worked a lot in China, and some of his works are just starting now to get recognized and popularized and cultivated. And this is hardy to zone 7B. It's a relative of Acer palmatum, which we know and love, and it is the only true evergreen maple we have in the garden. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to mention it's related to Acer laevigatum, of which we have a selection coming out that has purple twigs. That's Acer laevigatum Hong Long is one of our new, is choice plant or new release?
Introduction.
It's a new introduction.
It's an introduction. It's an introduction. We actually learned a bit. I hadn't heard the naming story, but apparently, the Nichols brothers
from Mr.
Maple were here this morning, and they were talking about how they had propagated a bunch of it, and they were like, "You have to name it. You have to name it." And Mark didn't.
He was dragging his feet. Doing something else.
And so they were like, "Well, then we're going to name it the Wethington," and he was like, "Oh, okay, I have a name for it."
And then the fun story we want to talk about for this tree was, you know, talk about this branch.
Yeah, so that branch, I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but when I was an intern, we had a covered gator, and it had more of a harder frame than ours did, or than ours currently did. And it was towards the end of the summer, I think. But we were walking by, I had no idea it was this plant, that I definitely scraped the entire bottom of the bark off on that branch. Yeah, and it healed over, like it lived. And
that was nine years ago?
9 years ago. We don't need to talk about it.
So last summer, late summer, when we were deciding to put the winter garden on the moonlight around that year, I started pruning in here, and I noticed, I mean, the branch looked fine, but back here, I mean, only the top like third of the branch here was alive, so there was a big canker coming out just like 3-4 feet where it had healed over, but it had at some point gotten infected before or after the healing process. And so this 2 feet of branch was only 1/3 alive, and so structurally I had to take it out. And I just thought it was funny, we were talking about this as we prepped for the tour, that's the one that about 8 years of 8 years of missed maintenance. Yeah. But she's healthy now, and this is a great tree.
She's gonna do great now.
She's gonna do great.
And I won't run over anybody else.
Well,
internships are a good learning experience.
Yeah, I guess every good intern runs something over, right?
Know your roof clearance.
Yeah, cut your losses and just keep moving.
Yeah, that's definitely working with plants, is they are living and they do die.
Yeah.
And sometimes you run them over.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us on the tour of winter garden plants in the winter garden here at the Arboretum. We're excited to see how this continues to shape up, and we're excited to see what you guys end up doing in your own yards with some of these ideas. So thank you very much for joining us, and get cozy. Yeah, go get warm.
We've got to warm our toesies.
Yeah.